Yeah, thank you, Roz. And joining me this week from 9 newspapers, Iain Payten and Sam Phillips. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in. Now, the Waratahs are on a bye week, but there is still plenty happening, Sam, at Daceyville.
Yeah, never a dull moment at Daceyville. The players have got the week off, but there are some serious movements happening at the Waratahs at the moment. As we go to air tonight, they're having a high-performance meeting with Richard Harry, Al Baxter, Chairman Roger Davis,
and Matt Burke.
Matt Burke's the other one, sorry. And they're going to discuss whether Rob Penny is the right man to take the club forward, as well as whether it's his fault, whether it's the structure or the organisation, the list management, which we've spoken about. There's going to be movement at the Waratahs in the coming weeks.
So it feels like it's approaching D-Day.
Yeah, so that's the high performance review group that was put together at the end of last year to do a review into the Waratahs and have been tasked with taking another look at the performance so far. 3 losses from 3 starts. So as Sam points out, they're reviewing the whole of the structure, and but I think if you can read the tea leaves this early, if they're doing another review, the drums are beating, and when they start beating, they really stop.
One of the things that's been under the spotlight in terms of the Waratahs is their recruitment and the fact that they've spent so far under what they're allowed to spend on players, and now there's talk about Isaac Rodder potentially heading to the Tars, among others.
Yeah, well, that's the Waratahs' depth has been discussed, and obviously they chose as a business decision to spend a fair bit less than other teams this year. It's coming to bite them a little bit now, you'd say. Isaac Rodder, obviously we know he left the Queensland Reds last year in kind of controversial circumstances. I suppose he's in France now, wanting to come home. So the Waratahs are in for him. The Force are in for him, I believe. The Brumbies or Rebels, one of those two. Rebels. Yeah. He's leaning towards the Force, so that's not a good sign for the Waratahs as far as, is that a picture that they're sending out that this isn't a place you want to join?
And it's another example, potentially, for the Western Force of what has been quite a remarkable recruitment display. You look at the internationals they've got, but also from the sevens scene, having those guys coming in and making a difference.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam, we saw Tim Anstey in particular, didn't we, on Friday night? An incredible performance. And those who follow sevens know all about Tim Anstey, the speed that he showed through in that break there, laying on that try. He's got plenty of it. He came straight out of the junior age groups and was recruited by Andy Friend, I believe, to play for the Aussie Sevens team. He's not the only one out of that Sevens program who's playing 15s. Lockie Anderson is down at the Rebels, and Louis Holland as well. They're all still in contention for the Olympic Games, I'm told, so that'll be interesting to see whether they come out of Super Rugby and make that squad. But you're right, the Force are doing good things in the recruiting space, and Tim Sampson, the coach, obviously has a good reputation amongst players. He's attracting some really good talent, and Sidaleki Tamani is the latest player who's coming home to play for the Force.
Now the Brumbies, 3 from 3. They're doing a few things right as well. And in your colleague Paul Cully's power rankings, they're into second, I think. So it begs the question, really, how would they go against the New Zealand team? And hopefully we'll find out later in the season with the Trans-Tasman comp, but another win, that Ryan Lonergan kick on the weekend, just stupendous. But how would they fare, do you think, against Kiwi teams at the moment?
I think the sign of a really good team is when you don't play well and you have plenty of things go against you and you still get results. And they didn't play well the other night. I think Dan McKellar would be the first man to admit that. They had a red card about halfway through the match and they still found a way to win. You don't see that very often. That's the sign of a champion team, but we really won't know. Hopefully Trans-Tasman footy gets up, because them against the Crusaders, our best against their best.
That's the great shame, really, is that all the signs are pointing towards that Trans-Tasman comp is in real trouble. It's due to start in mid-May. The New Zealand-Australia bubble, seems at long odds. Rugby Australia at pains to point out that they're not asking for early vaccinations, despite having talked to the government about vaccination rollout plans. So will the Brumbies, in what is maybe, we would argue, is their premiership window, they're kind of in that sort of form right now, will they get to prove it, or will we have to see, wait another year and hope that that team can develop into or maintain its form next year when it can finally take on the Kiwi teams?
I hope they do, because it would be it'd be great for us as viewers and fans to see them go up against some of those New Zealand teams. The red card in that game, Allan Alaalatoa the other night, and that's thrown up some really interesting conversations around this new regulation about the red card. So the player goes off But after 20 minutes, he can't come back, but a teammate can replace him, so that team goes back to 15 men.
Yeah, there's a flaw in there, though, isn't there, Nick? So Pone Falmasili went off for a concussion check and didn't come back on, so the Rebels lost a player, effectively, didn't they? But the Brumbies were able to replace Allan Alaalatoa. So did the Rebels get due advantage there? Arguably not. These are law trials, and these are the things that will be discussed at the end of the year. But I guess it opens up to that question as whether they should amend that rule. Should, if a player has to go off as an active foul play, that period be doubled, or the rest of the second half, for example. So I think there's an acknowledgement of that within Rugby Australia. That is a bit of a flaw in the process. But as I say, the trials are there for a reason, and no doubt they'll review it.
Good on you, gents. Thanks very much for that. Ros, that is the latest Rugby Heaven news, but that red card discussion is actually a very, very interesting one.
Thank you very much, Nick. Well, they raised some very interesting points in the Rugby Heaven newsroom. What is your perspective on that red card rule?
Well, it's great that we're discussing it. From my point of view, that there's more red cards in the game now because of player safety, which is hugely important. But if we try to manipulate different situations about what a red card means, then it's open to manipulation. Tactically, coaches will sit there. I'm a coach, I'll sit there and go, I might not need that player. That's an important player for them. Let's make sure he doesn't go back on. So I think this is a really good discussion to have at the moment about, is that 20 minutes working versus you're off in the first minute, you're off for 79 minutes and you're off. There probably isn't that sort of manipulation in the middle that we can allow in the game, truthfully.